Good evening, everyone. If anyone's here, I'm a little bit early, so we'll hang around for a few minutes, let people get in the building. If anyone is going to come in the building, put the phone on silent. Let us see if anyone is going to turn up. Still working out this live thing at the minute. All still a bit new to me. I actually thought I just lost the stream a minute ago. I was looking for how to actually start it and couldn't find it. But we're here, we're live. In the words of Bono, we're live to the world tonight, so let's hope this shit works. A lot to talk about over an eventful and uneventful weekend. Quite a weird weekend of boxing, wasn't it? A few extremes. Lots to pick apart. Or not a lot to pick apart, whichever way you look at it. Right. Someone was in the building, then they left the building. So let's see. I remember the last one we did, the last live we did, it was sweltering. And it's anything but this week here. What is the time? 20:58. What? Where are we? Who we got? We got no one yet. Well, they keep coming, they keep leaving. They must keep seeing my face and thinking, no, I don't want to sit and look at that. I was listening to earlier, forgive me, on Talk Sport. Let me just. I was listening to Talk Sport with Adam Booth, who Adam Booth said that David Adelaide punches harder than David Haye used to. Which I suppose is understandable. Adelaide being a fully fledged heavyweight and David Haye not really being a small heavyweight, although he was known for his punch power, wasn't he? But he said David Adelaide punches harder than David Haye. Where are we? 1 minute. 1 minute to go, and then we'll get into today's business on the agenda. Right, 9 o'clock. There we go. So let's start. Might be just me on my own, but who cares? Did anyone see the interview with Billy Nelson this week? There's lots to talk about, but this was one of the most, other than how poorly shocking or shockingly poor the Times Square fights were, other than Teo, this was one of the most bizarre things I'd heard. Billy Nelson, I can't remember what it was on, might have been IFL, something like that. Billy Nelson was talking about Martin Bakoli's performance. And Billy Nelson does talk a lot of shit about other trainers, other fighters, other managers, and all that sort of stuff. And Billy Nelson sat there and said that Martin Bakoli, in essence, he didn't say the word fat. I think he said too heavy, which is essentially too fat, because Martin Bakoli is fat. But he said Martin Bakoli was just too fat. And that says quite a few things, that does. A, you're his manager and trainer, and essentially, you know, a lot of the blame sits at your door that Martin Bakoli is too fat. And coming off the Joseph Parker fight, where we all know he came in late, sort of 48 hours, whatever it was. So we let him have that one. We could give him a bye for that one. But this one, you can't really use that excuse, can you? You have to put that down to the camp, the team, Bakoli himself. And then he went on to say that what part of the problem was Martin McCauley is a vegetarian, which again was a see, that's very much for all the stuff Martin McCauley has said to other people, saying that part of the problem was, well, initially saying the problem was he was just too fat, and then saying that part of the problem is that he's vegetarian. You're really passing the buck there. And then he went on to say that they've got that. So he's too fat. Part of the problem is he's vegetarian, but don't worry because we've got in an American S&C coach and a nutritionist. Now, from that statement, I kind of led to believe that he didn't have an S&C coach or nutritionist, which at that level, and McCauley being talked about as, is McCauley past? Yeah, McCauley's past the prospect stage, I suppose, isn't he? But a heavyweight fighter who came in at short notice on his last fight was terrible because of that. Didn't really expect anything. And this, to me, says a lot about Billy Nelson as well, because it would have been Billy Nelson's decision, really, to take the gamble against Joseph Parker at short notice. Fine, fair enough. He who dares wins and all that. So fair enough. But when you then bring him to his next fight and you bring him severely out of shape, 299 pounds, and then you sit down post-fight and give an interview and say, yeah, he was just too fat. I mean, you've got to look at Billy Nelson, really, for me. And then you say part of the problem is he's vegetarian. Okay, well, there are a lot of vegetarian athletes out there that aren't morbidly obese like Martin McCauley. And then you say, but it's all right because the problem's fixed. We've got an S&C coach and a nutritionist in because we didn't have one before. So, yeah. As for Martin McCauley, what are we saying about Martin McCauley? Is Martin McCauley sort of just a bit overhyped? Because the guy is talented. There's no doubt he's talented. He's got good hands. He really has got good hands. But you do have to just talk about the fucking lack of condition he's got for a professional fighter. He's just fat. What does he do? I listened to, I think it was Carl Froch. Was it Carl Froch? Talking about that McCauley likes to eat. I mean, blatantly, he likes to eat. But, Bob. Hello, Bob. Bob from Canada's Boxing Channel. Shout out, Bob. Superb channel. Puts the work in. And he's the calmestly spoken man in boxing YouTube, I think, is Bob. Big shout out to Bob. Hello, Lee. Mark McCauley, the eating champion of Scotland. Yeah, 100%. I mean, maybe Scotland has banned S&C coaches and nutritionists. I don't know. But for the amount of shit that Billy Nelson talks about everyone else, and now you've misjudged Martin McCauley and brought a fighter in late, a lamb to the slaughter at the hands of Joseph Parker. Now you've brought him to his next fight, 299 pounds, severely out of shape, and you blame partly on the fact that he's a vegetarian. But it's okay because now you've got an S&C coach and a nutritionist. Right. Yeah, so Martin McCauley. Wasted talent or overhyped? Hype job? Don't like that word. But anyway, Times Square then. I heard, I can't remember what channel I heard it on, but I heard Times Square. The original plan with that Times Square show, yes, Wee Billy. Yeah, after an S&C coach from America. Yeah. I don't know. Because there are many an S&C coach and nutritionist in the UK in boxing. So who knows? So there was a plan with a Times Square show to show the fights on the Times Square screens. And that was going to be part of this sort of concept, which kind of, in theory, was a good concept. Didn't kind of work out that way. So they planned to put the fights on the big screens in Times Square, the ones on the screens on the buildings. And at the last minute, they were told because it could cause sort of traffic problems, people looking at the screens, not driving, not paying attention, that they didn't let that go ahead. And I don't think Turkey, the illustrious Turkey, or DAZN had kind of really thought about that ahead of time. And so they lost it. So what you had was, in effect, all you had was Times Square was a fuck up. They never did the research to get the jumbotrons running. Yeah, but it was in violation of traffic. Yeah, it was. Yeah, in violation, which they never planned ahead for. So they were sort of at the last. And I don't know how late they would have left that, because there had to be some interaction between DAZN, Turkey Al Sheikh's team, and the powers that be. But it was left to the last minute, apparently. And at the last minute, it was, no, you can't do that. Big up Joe Stunner Boxing, the illustrious Joe Stunner Boxing. We are in esteemed company tonight. Big up, Joe. Yeah, so that was going to be part of the concept, which fell through because they didn't do their research and didn't plan ahead. Maybe Turkey just thought Turkey had to ask and Turkey gets. So that's maybe what it was. So it would have been a better concept, but God, I don't know how to pronounce. Is that Chris YG? Big up Chris YG. Salut. Thanks for dropping in, my man. Thanks very much. Appreciate everyone that drops in to sit here and listen to me waffle. So thank you very much. So yeah, that concept could have been good. And then apparently you just had the few thousand or few hundred, what it was, in attendance, and it was kind of just basically silence. So, I mean, could that have worked out? Could that have ended up being a good idea? I don't know. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, Joe putting his reputation on the line by recommending me. So yeah, Times Square show. Tim Bradley said in an interview today that he believes that those performances were that bad because these fighters are essentially spoiled with the money, the treatment they get, and that's led to the performances that we got. What do you think about Tim Bradley's comments that the fighters are spoiled and that's the reason? There's also talk of Ryan Garcia, and this is kind of factual. Do we put Ryan Garcia's no-show down to inactivity or down to the fact that if we believe what happened, that Ryan Garcia was now PED free and that performance against Devin Haney was fueled by an enthusiasm for PEDs? And now the PEDs are gone. That's the performance we got. Because other than Teo, I agree with Bradley. They are multimillionaires now, or two set up. Yeah, and especially when they're getting paid by Turkey Al Sheikh. And that kind of shows how spoiled they are, because they're so spoiled that they don't see, right, if I get on a Turkey Al Sheikh bill and I look really good, that gets me on another bill and another card and another card. My stock goes up. But I get paid a shit ton of money and I just don't perform. Joe Stunner, many of those fights promised much and should have. Yeah, they should have, yeah. But yeah, silk pajamas, yeah. Yeah. I don't know with Garcia. I mean, it was such a no-show. Because at least if we believe Conor Benn was, again, enthusiastically using the Clomid, his performances didn't drop. Yes, he didn't stop people. Reese, hello, mate. Thanks for dropping in, mate. Appreciate it. Salut, my man. Thank you. Conor Benn's performances didn't stop in his attitude. He still went out there to destroy these guys. It looked like his punch power had gone. Although I debate that and think those guys could have just had chins, but he didn't put on a no-show. He still performed the way he always does. He just didn't stop the guys. But Garcia was just, and like I say, other than Teo, but Joe is right. Those fights on paper were decent and should have been good. So what is the reason then? Is it just too much money? Was it the atmosphere? A lot of people talk about the fact that it was a really poor atmosphere. Yes, compared around. Yeah, we'll get onto that later. We will get onto that later, my friend Bob. We're saving the best stuff till last. Garcia is a strange cat. Perhaps someone who runs of chaos and is awful when he's straight. Yeah, possibly. Maybe he needs that sort of chaos in his life to do them sort of performances. Looking at all those guys at 147, how do we think Conor Benn does against those guys? Let's maybe leave Teo out of it. But I personally think he walks through Devin Haney. Devin Haney doesn't have a punch to deter him. He doesn't have anything to put him off. He can't match Ben's speed. And if you've got nothing to deter Conor Benn, and even if you have got someone to deter Conor Benn, like Chris Eubank, he's still going to come. If they can make that fight with Devin Haney for Conor Benn, that is perfectly timed. Agree with you about Canderas. Yeah. Cardanas. I kept watching that at the weekend, you know, and any crypto fans out there, I kept calling him Cardano. Cardanas, yeah. Like I say, we'll get into that one later, but it saved the weekend, didn't it? At least for the weekend only, Inoue and Cardanas saved boxing. Pretty much. If Conor fights like he did against Eubank, then Haney's in trouble. Haney's out of there for me. Haney hasn't got a chin. I think Haney is one of those fighters who started very young and will be shot by the time he's. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about how much weight Haney drops as well, isn't there? You know, and when you drop all that weight, it affects so many things. Your punch resistance, your output for a lot of fighters. It didn't affect Eubank's output so much. It affected his legs and punch resistance, but Haney might be shot. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's shot. I just think he had a fantastic performance over. Help me out, gentlemen. What's his name? Puncher. Top guy. You know the guy I'm talking about. He had a great performance against him. And even I said after that, there were elements of that performance that were almost Mayweather-esque. But I wish I could remember his name. But he was tailor-made for him. He was kind of not super fast, didn't offer a lot of movement, came in sort of straight lines and chased after him. It's kind of made for Devin Haney. But I don't know whether it's shot. I don't know if it's maybe the weight that is making him shot. But you put him in with Conor Benn and Conor Benn walks through him. I don't think he keeps Conor Benn off at all. And Ryan Garcia's got a bit more of a punch, but on that performance, I'd possibly pick Conor Benn as well, to be honest with you. What a strange event that was. What a strange fights they were to be that poor, other than Teo. Odd. And then we had Canelo Alvarez. My view of Ben as a fighter has gone up a lot since Eubank. You think he would do better than he? Yeah, 100%. I don't think many of us really. Well, he hadn't done anything to really suggest that he could make an impact at 147, had he? You know, he'd had the Van Heerden wins, the two in America, Dobson, and he'd looked good, but they were all aging opponents, or they were slightly bigger in America, seemed to have good chin, but he couldn't get them out of there. He still looked good in flashes. He's still got all the ability. But I just looked at Devin Haney and I thought that could be over very, very quickly. It really could. The trouble Ryan Garcia gave him. And I'm not saying Conor Benn is better than Ryan Garcia, but you can only go on last performances, can't you? They're as good as your last fight. Getting down to 147 might take a while. Ben might be better off still. Well, Ben has said categorically that if he doesn't get the Eubank rematch next, then that's dead. He said, Conor Benn said, I will not put myself through going up, going down, going up, going down. So he said, if the rematch is next, he takes it. But if the rematch doesn't happen next, it doesn't happen at all, because he goes back to 147 and stays at 147. That is, he said that, stated it quite a few times. So he's going to do 147. Agreed, better at 154, though. It's a tougher division. Well, I don't know. If you look at the weight he came in at, he weighed in at 156, and I think he was 160, I think he was 162, 163 on fight night, which suggests to me that he can still make 147, because he wasn't ever really a big 147 fighter either, was he? So looking at it now, I think he could do 147. How long he stays there, I don't know. As he gets to, what is he now, 26? As he gets to 29, 30, there's no doubt it'll go up. But I think he'll do 147 still now. But yeah, so the rematch, if it doesn't happen next, then it won't happen at all. I'd be surprised. Because even if Conor Benn goes to 147, wins the title, hangs about there for another couple of years, Eubank Jr. is not going to be around in another couple of years. So Canelo Alvarez then, against William Skoll. What do we make of Skoll's performance? Do we put all the blame at Skoll's door for that dud? Canelo sort of done. Canelo's a Mexican. Canelo wants to have fights. He wants people to come at him. That's what makes the Mexicans great. That's the way they fight. They want to be in fights. They want people to come at them. They want people to stand in the middle of the ring and exchange. And he was just, content to run, basically. And I don't always call. I like to see a good back foot boxer. I like to see the likes of Bivol, who can still be offensive when he wants to. Then he can box on the back foot, never running, boxing on the back foot with style, and still scoring points on the back foot. That's possibly one of the worst opponents for Canelo to look good against, for anyone to look good against, if we're honest. You're going to struggle very hard to look good against that guy. So, Canelo, no, 60% of Scar's fault, but 40% on Canelo, to be honest. Canelo's play. Yeah, it was appalling. It was appalling. In fact, all of those, the fights at Times Square, their outputs were fucking terrible as well. And also, the Canelo fight was terrible. I mean, he upped it towards the end, didn't he? But yeah, I mean, if you're Canelo, what do you think? I'm just going to keep. I don't need to have a high output. I did give Skull some rounds early on, though. Don't know what you guys thought. I thought he took some rounds early on because Canelo did nothing, as you say, Bob. Just kind of a bit weird. I do think. Part of me thinks, no, is Canelo just doing enough? Doing what he have to? He's not going to overextend himself. He doesn't need to. But part of me thinks, when Canelo needs to call on that against Crawford, will it be there? And I must admit, when I looked at Crawford, Joyce Hergovich, yeah. Ben Eubank, even Chris Eubank. I think in a lot of those Times Square fights, they were around 300-400 punches thrown per fight, where Chris Eubank Jr. in round 12 threw 129 punches. No time for you can't call yourself a man of the people, then take pay-per-view money and plod around the ring like an old man. Yes, a fair point, Joe. Fair point. Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of. But what do? Do you just chase and swing and hit air all night? I don't know. But yeah, I get you. It does take two to tango. I do think Canelo was kind of a bit limited in what he really could do. There is always, you could cut the ring off more. You could not chase. You could step across, try and cut the man down, and then leash with volume when he's on the ropes. But he was moving a lot. But I do agree. You want better from that from Canelo. Yeah, didn't Canelo get something like 8? Yeah. Well, doesn't Canelo say, I had it when he was talking about the, he's not a Kazakhstani, Madrimov. When he boxed, sorry, not Madrimov. He was talking about, I think he was talking, yeah, this was when before the Crawford fight was made. And Canelo said, I get 80% of every purse. And if I don't get that, there's no fight. Which is, yeah, so 80 million. But so he says, if I get 80% of every purse to everyone he fights. He's obviously had to adjust that for the Crawford fight. But listen, if he's going to if they're going to keep paying it to him, I suppose he's going to keep taking it, innit? But it doesn't win your fans, does it? But how much is that performance just papering over the cracks of how much Canelo's got left? Canelo's undoubtedly on the downside of his career. Joe's mate, Gareth Davis, said he got 8. Yeah, he may have, mate. Yeah, he may have got 80 million. I totally believe it. But a while ago, around the time when Crawford fought Madrimov and they were talking about this fight, he said he gets 80% of the purse, of any purse agreed with whoever he fights. Yeah, 80 million, yeah. I would be surprised if that was 80 million take home, though. If that's 80 million purse. But that is an outrageous amount of money. I mean, if you look at Joshua, Fury, and Usyk, none of them have made 80 million a fight. I'd put money on that. None of them have made 80 million a fight. And going on that last performance, they're probably worthy more than Canelo was of that 80 million. So when they were stood in the ring, Canelo and Crawford, I did look at Crawford and you could see he had a little bump. He had a little bit of a stomach there. But Not that he was out of shape, just, he was not in fight shape. But I did look at the sizes and I did think, even Crawford had the shoulders and the traps. I think Turkey will be watching there. Oh, 100%. But I think me and Joe talked about that a while ago. This money is only going to be at the beginning. Once he gets everyone in and everyone contracted and locked down, these purses will stop massively. Julio says that Chavez used to take non-title fights in Mexico and charge peanuts for. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. When Canelo's ever done that, yeah, he constantly screams with you. But yeah, 100%, Joe. I agree. It's like boxing's going the way of the Premier League, becoming a bit of a rich man sport to go and watch, especially at the top end. But yeah, I looked at Crawford and I looked at his size. And you'd make Crawford favourite, wouldn't you? On Canelo. Do you think Canelo can live with Crawford's technical ability? I'm not sure he can. But Crawford does have age against him. That is signed for September, isn't it? Which is apparently when the Ben Eubank rematch is also September. Sorry, I'm just catching up on these comments. Me and Joe also talked about this before. And it was, what am I right in thinking? I heard them talking about the pay-per-view for Canelo and the pay-per-view for the Times Square stuff was like a 2-for-1 bundle. I think most people will, Bob. It's just so hard to find anything to dislike about Crawford. The way he handles himself, the fighter he is. I mean, Crawford against Errol Spence, and I remember making a video about this at the time, was one of those performances you just kind of sat fixated, mouth open, just in complete awe of what you were seeing. And it almost, because it was so one-sided, yeah, 2-card package, yeah. I didn't either, no chance. Too late for me anyway, and I wasn't paying for that. What was the price of that in the UK? Does anyone know? But yeah, when you saw Crawford box Spence, pay-per-view price for me in Canada was $59.99. Card for Rem, how are you, sir? Thanks for coming in, mate. Rem, one of the OGs. Salut, sir. Yeah, when you saw Crawford box Spence, that, on paper was a real good match. A real good match. And it almost devalued it because Crawford won that so easily. It was almost like Crawford would get into positions he knew that he needed to be in before Errol Spence had even thrown the punch or made the move to make him get in that position. It was like some psychic ability that he could read Spence's mind. It was one of the most stunning performances I've ever seen. And I just don't know what Canelo only does one thing nowadays, doesn't he? Canelo walks forward and walks you down and throws single shots at best. His hands are still pretty fast, but he throws a lot of single punches. And he just walks forward. Crawford just seems... Where have you got Crawford in the pound for pound? Have you got Inoue, Crawford, Usyk? And then Beterbiev and Bivol have to be there somewhere. Inactivity might play a factor for Crawford. Also, yeah, but like I said, Joe, I know they are quite a few weights apart naturally, but when I was watching some Crawford highlights tonight, and I looked at Crawford in the ring at the weekend, and I was watching. It was kind of like a career compilation. And there was a lot of bits of Crawford in the gym training, and Crawford cuts a fuck ton of weight. I'll tell you that now. Watching him in the gym and then watching him in fights, and it's been a while since I watched Crawford, his last fight. But looking at him when he's training, when he's not approaching fight week, he looks a different person. Crawford cuts a shit ton of weight. Crawford's doing the same sort of weight cut as Chris Eubank Jr. I'll tell you that now. Crawford rehydrated over 168. Not surprised at all. Not surprised at all. So I have it the same as Bob with Bivol. So what did Bob have? Usyk, Inoue, Crawford. Yeah. Usyk, Inoue's done it in and around his weight division, and Usyk has just really had no right to come up and do what he's done. Usyk hasn't. So, yeah, I agree. If Crawford beats Canelo, though, how does that stir things up? Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Like I said, I looked at him in the ring. I looked at Canelo, and I don't know. Canelo doesn't look like he struggles to make 168. I looked at Canelo round the midriff, round the back, and there was loose, and he is getting older, but there was there was a little roll of loose skin that was coming over the top of the trunks, and that suggests to me Canelo's never really been a massive 168, has he, at all? I know he went up above that, but he's never been a massive 168. And he doesn't look like he kills himself to make weight. And I think that's what he trades on now. I think he trades on that blunt force trauma single shots just through being heavy for his size. And I don't think when Crawford moves up, there'll be a massive amount of difference. Like I said, I looked at him in the ring, and I looked at Crawford, I looked at how thick it was, I looked at his shoulders, looked at his traps, and I thought, on the night, there ain't going to be a lot between these two. I tell you that. He might not stop Canelo. Canelo's got one of the... That's one thing you can't take away from Canelo. Canelo's probably got the greatest chin in world boxing. Yeah, it would. It would, Joe, yeah. It would give an argument, 100%. I mean, I know Canelo was lost, but the Bivol loss, that's an elite level fighter. That's one of the top pound for pound, top five. And he's a way naturally bigger man. So that defeat kind of don't really count. But Crawford, you know, people will say he should beat because he is bigger. And if Crawford beats him, that's a huge achievement. He is huge and has been put a lot of muscle. He's bigger. Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. This is what I watched from this. It was about an hour long, and it was a career sort of what's it I'm looking for? But it showed him a lot in the gym and a lot in fights, and it showed him doing a lot of compound stuff, deadlifts, squats. And Crawford's a big guy. I'll tell you now, Crawford cuts a fuck ton of weight to make weight at the moment. Not one. He'll cut weight to make 168. I'll tell you that now. He'll have to because he's bigger than that. Can I give you? I'd say Usyk is better than taking punch off AJ and Dubois, who are much heavier and more impressive. Yeah, is that? I'd say Usyk has a better. Right. Yeah, I won't say that I've seen Usyk take. I've never seen Usyk really take an absolutely full-blooded shot that I can remember. But always good to see Rem in the comments. Yeah, Remy's an OG. Yeah, he's one of my channel's biggest supporters. So, salut, Rem. Yeah, so I don't know if Usyk's chin has been tested to the degree that Canelo's has, and over the time period. Yeah, but Fury's not a puncher, is he? That's the only thing I'll say. And Fury throws his uppercut almost like an arm punch. Fury doesn't really dip at the knees and throw it. Fury just spoons it out and throws it. So it's a good punch, and I'm not saying it's a weak punch. What I'm saying is Fury's A, not a puncher at heavyweight, and B, doesn't throw the uppercut like a Mike Tyson would throw the uppercut, like a Lennox Lewis would throw the uppercut. Tyson's uppercut is very much just almost like an arm punch, a scoop. Like I say, it's a good punch, but And it's really, for me, the test of a good chin is when they get their head spun from, say, a hook or a big right hand. That's the test of a good chin for me. So, yeah, that's the only thing I'll say, Bob. The uppercut from Fury is a good shot, but I don't think at heavyweight, that's a particularly powerful shot. I know it dropped Dillian Whyte, but Dillian Whyte's been dropped by them uppercuts all his life, and his chin isn't great. I get the feeling Bakole has shot his bolt. Maybe has made enough money now and just can't get motivated. Well, he's blatantly lazy. Anyone who comes in that big is blatantly greedy and blatantly lazy. Your eyes don't lie. The scales don't lie. How much money would you say Bakole's made? Probably just from the Joseph Parker fight. Oi, Rem, I've read that, Rem. My favourite channel, Joseph the Boxing. That's one of mine too. No, he did have 70 pounds, yeah, but Usyk is, when you get, this is the thing. So all this stuff about sort of punch power and weight and all that is relative. So when you get the lower weights, if you get someone who, say, a featherweight, who would say box a middleweight, the gap in size and power is much bigger. The more you go up the weights, the more relative it becomes, and the closer the gap gets. Even if, and this is why you will get heavyweights at 15 stone who can box heavyweights near 20 stone. Because once you get above sort of 13, 14 stone, the gaps are not really as big as they are down at the lower weight. Because odd sparred guys, and I've seen guys spar who are lower down the weights, and the trainer would not let them spar up to a certain weight. But when you get to sort of 168 super middleweight, 12 stone and above, the gap starts to narrow a bit, so the difference is not as big. And although Fury had a massive weight advantage, Fury will, if you put Fury and Usyk on one of those punch measuring machines, I guarantee you, because of Usyk's technique compared to Fury's size, there wouldn't be that much difference in punch power. I feel like White v Parker is on the Usyk Dubrar card. I just have a feel. I hope not. That fight's not even worth it, is it, anymore? I like Dillian Whyte as well. I like him as a guy, which is why I don't believe any heavyweight needs to be any more. No. And that's what I mean, because the further you go up, the gap really narrows. It really narrows. The exchange rate to the Congo is yeah, Bakole will live like, well, he fucking has been. Yeah, he has been. Yeah, with back to himself. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, you got to remember, it's like, when you get people who've never had money and they suddenly come into money, they stop everything. The hunger goes. They just spunk the fucking money, and that's it. That's enough. And a lot of guys are the same. Bakole could have made. What would you say Bakole got for stepping in against Parker? Does anyone know? He'd have probably got $1 million-ish, I would have thought, wouldn't you? And he would have probably never dreamed of earning that kind of money. Bakole is actually royalty. Job done. Bakole's actually royalty. His father is the king of France. Yeah, I'm not probably surprised. Yeah. He's a prince. Yeah, same. Yeah, I did, mate. I did, Bob. Yeah, I saw that as well. And that is usually the sort of behaviour from people who have sort of just come into money, never had money before, and they go and spunk it out on all that extravagant bollocks. Because just to flex, and that's what they do, unfortunately. So yeah, adds up, doesn't it? But yeah. Billy Nelson gone. I hope Bakole. Yeah, I know. I said, Rem, you missed that, mate. I said that earlier. I know. Bob made a video on this, and I was watching Bob's video, and I messaged Bob on the group, and I said, Bob, I've just watching your video, and that interview just fucking shocked me when I heard it. And he said, yeah, well, one of the problems is Martin's a vegetarian. Oh, it was a fucking laughable, Rem. Honestly. It was as well when he sat there and he said, Well, Martin was just too fat. He didn't say fat, he said too heavy, but he means too fat. Well, you're his manager, you're his trainer, and post-fight you sit there and say, Martin was just too fat. No shit, Sherlock. Martin was just too fat. And, one of the problems is he's a vegetarian. I'm just thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And then as Bob pointed out in his video, he goes on to say, but don't worry, because we have gone on and we've got an American S&C coach and we've got a nutritionist now. We never had one to start with. Billy Captain Obvious Nelson, yeah. This is the guy that, any heavyweight he's got can beat any top heavyweight on the planet. It's fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. I wish I had money to splash on extravagant bollocks. Oh, well, back to the fact that the extravagant bollocks is overrated. You'll just walk around looking at tit, Joe. Nah, he won't. Hang on, am I not seeing that? What's that? No, oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you caught me for a minute there with a Scottish accent. Okay, did you? I can't eat British food. Yeah. You just, I don't know. Martin McCauley didn't get this fight at late notice, did he? Or how late a notice did Martin McCauley get this fight? Because I don't know. And maybe it goes down to that thing again. And I talked about this with Chris Eubank Jr. Now, if you take Brendan Ingle is a trainer. Love him or hate him, Brendan Ingle. Sorry, not Brendan Ingle, Dominic Ingle. And I like Dominic Ingle. I've always liked the Ingles. But Dominic Ingle is the absolute fucking boss of anyone who trains. If they don't meet if they don't meet their target weights at intervals, if they don't do the diet, he won't work with them. He will fuck them off. If you don't do what he says, and that goes for S&C, for nutrition, if you don't do what he says, you're gone. Simple as that. And I know Nazim Hamid never did sort of road work and things like that. But actually in the gym, he was doing the work. He was always in shape. And that's how it should be. I'm sorry, that's how it should be. There's no excuse for me for seeing fighters coming in fucking morbidly obese as disgrace. He had tons of notice, Lee. This was scheduled before. But, right. Yeah, so no fucking excuse. No excuse at all. It's just, if you look at all the fighters that have been greats over the years, pretty much, they're all fighters that have pretty much took it seriously, took the sport as a professional and stayed in shape. Say what you want about Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather never fucking ever out of shape. He was always in the gym, even when fights weren't scheduled. He was still in the gym. What do they call it? Not the dog pit. They call it sparring sessions in the Mayweather gym. Never out of shape. Look at all the great champions. Look at your Bivens. Look at your Batavievs. Look at your Inues. And even at the top, look at Usyk. Did you ever see Usyk out of shape? And say what you like about Joshua. Did you ever see Joshua out of shape? This is a professional fucking sport. It's a professional industry at the top level. And I'm sorry, you don't deserve to be there if you're just going to be a fucking slob. So, yeah, unfortunately, Bacoli, I think, to use G-Man terms, put a fork in him. Put a fork in him, he's done. Because Martin McCauley can't come in and can't turn up for a fight in any better shape than that. He's not going to go anywhere. He's got no place being there. I think we've beat our previous record. We've got 5 in the building. So one of you who hasn't smashed the like, please smash the like. So, yeah, strange week of boxing, strange weekend of boxing. I tell you what I did here. We were talking about this on the last live. What do you want to see? Oh my God. Just going to jump in. We were talking last time about the fines, and we were talking about the fines to Chris Eubank, and we were asking about where that money went. So the fine for missing the weight wasn't a fine that went to the board. The fine for missing the weight, which I believe was $1 million or £1 million, went straight to Conor Benn. Because Conor Benn said today on an interview with Ariel Helwani that he was glad that Chris missed the weight, because I don't know if you follow Conor Benn on Instagram or other social media. I think it was a picture on YouTube as well. Conor Benn brought a new Rolls Royce a Cullinan, I believe, fully spec'd, and he said that it was Eubank missing the weight that paid for that Rolls Royce. So that was a contractual fine to go to either camp. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Joe. Yeah, that new white Cullinan. So he bought that out of the extra money he made for Eubank missing the weight. So that wasn't a board fine. I'm figuring it that way because Conor Benn got the money. Yeah, see, I like Conor Benn. I like him. I find him likable. And like I say, I've done many a video on the Clomid. So leaving that aside, I like Conor Benn. Unashamedly, I like Conor Benn. Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of that. I don't like the big. Have you seen the big gold medallion that he wears? Have you seen what that says? That, I mean, that's cheesy as fuck. I hate all that sort of stuff, all that, you know, rap culture kind of stuff. But that big gold thing that he wears, which looks like a Jim will fix it badge, Target reference, says not guilty. Cheesy. A fully spec Cullinan. I don't know whether it was a what's the sort of Rolls Royce sort of tuners, the Mansory. I don't know if it's a Mansory Cullinan, but a fully spec brand new Cullinan. I don't know. $500,000, $750,000 maybe. I don't know. That's a guess. But he said that the 1 million he got from Eubank not making weight paid for it. So whether he had to put some towards it, or whether he had some change, I don't know. He said it cost a few $100,000 on the video. Oh, right, a few $100,000. Okay. Yeah, so it probably wasn't a Mansory then. But, yeah, a couple $100,000. That seems a bit cheap, actually. So, yeah, it was interesting that wasn't a board fine. I don't know if there's a board fine as well for missing weight, because there's usually a board fine? I can't remember. But that was obviously a fine that was written to the contract. It was interesting as well. I was listening to Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom the other day, and they were talking about the rematch, and they were talking about whether each of them had signed the contracts for the rematch, and they said that so those contracts were individual, so that each side didn't really know what each other side's contracts were, so that they got the contracts from, I'm assuming, Turkey Al Sheikh, and then they go via the promoters, but each contract was different. So, and then the contracts didn't go from camp to camp, apparently. So one contract just filtered down to one camp, and that didn't go to the other camp. The other camp had no say in that whatsoever. And then vice versa, the other camp got their contract, came down from Turkey. They negotiated, but they didn't negotiate team versus team. They negotiated, I'm assuming, via Turkey. But essentially, they got different contracts, and neither of each party knew really what other contract said. Obviously, the weight was known and all that, but I thought that was quite interesting. Contract penalties are different. Yeah, which it was. That's what I'm saying, yeah. But initially, I thought that was a board fine, but it wasn't. It was a contract penalty. I'm so confused on the Eubank Junior management side of the contract. Why would you? Well, I said this. I think I might have said it in my pre-fight prediction. There were only two people to blame for Chris Eubank having that £10 clause. Oh, that was the other bit they said. The £10 rehydration clause, Eubank got £1 million for that. So essentially, he was selling his health. Eubank Jr. got £1 million for the £10 rehydration clause. And this is what I said. There are only two people. When everyone's blaming Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn for making Eubank Jr. make that weight and then do the rehydration clause, there's only two people to blame. I'm sorry to tell people this, but there are two people to blame. And that's Ben Shalom and Chris Eubank Jr. End of story. So all this about Eubank, about Ben and Hearn boiling you. No, sorry. Bollocks. The two people to blame for that. And as we know now, Eubank took £1 million for the rehydration clause to stay within the £10. There's only two people to blame. That's Eubank, Ben Shalom, and anyone else in his team. Napa maybe his manager. So I'm not having that. Keep saying it's Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn. It ain't. It's you two. It's Ben Shalom and Chris Eubank. Yeah, I know. That's the stupid thing, isn't it? So he was getting £1 million for the rehydration clause, but he came in overweight and lost the bonus he was getting for the rehydration clause. And that ain't no one else's fault but Eubanks at the end of the day. I still don't know whether I want to see that rematch. I'm still not 100% sure whether that rematch will go ahead. It's a fight. To just see a fight like that as a fight fan, you're like, I'm all over it. But I don't want to see Eubank box at 160, and I don't want to see him because I don't dislike Eubank at all. I think there's a problem with ticket sales of boxing shows all over the place, especially in the UK. Well, that's another thing, isn't it? There are 60,000 tickets sold already for Usyk Dubois. Oh, there's not enough regulars to buy tickets to shows, even if they're great ones. Well, I just think people they only have, normal people only have a sort of a finite amount of money to spend on sort of entertainment and stuff like that, don't they? And it's not cheap to get they're not cheap to get any ticket at a top line boxing show event anymore, let alone a show like that. And then there's, if you've got to travel, you've got hotel accommodation, food in London, in the capital, which is extortionate. So it's going to suffer. You can't have big events like that and expect to sell them out all the time. Yeah, I guess that's an exception for sure. See, it's not that I don't want to see the fight. I just, as much as I thought the first fight was great, and as much as I like both guys, I've disputed some of the things that Chris Eubank Jr. has said, and I sometimes doubt the authenticity of his reasons. But I like Chris Eubank Jr. I don't dislike Chris Eubank Jr. I just call it as I see it. The weight and all that is Eubank Jr.'s fault, no one else's. But I don't want Eubank Jr. It can only be worse. Every time he makes that weight, it's going to take a bit out of him that he's never going to get back. Every time he's in a fight like that, it's going to take a bit out of him that he's never going to get back. Eubank Jr. can only be worse. Conor Benn can only be better. Conor Benn will go back and watch that fight and see all the things that he should have done, all the things he did wrong, and all the wrong decisions he made in the fight. So I'd pick Conor Benn second time around. I think Eubank would be even worse. And I don't want to see that happen to Eubank. As much as I like Conor Benn, and as much as I'd love to see Conor Benn overturn and avenge that decision, I don't want to see Eubank Jr. go through that again. And as you say, Bob, a one-off. It's way too dangerous for Eubank to start 160 for anyone. He's not that great a fighter anyway, but to boil himself down again, it would be. And you talk about this all the time, Joe. The point of diminishing returns, and Eubank has met that and gone past it. I've always said this. Eubank's problem is he's not really got enough punch, and he's not really got the presence to be a true 168. And 160 is too much of a stretch. Unfortunately, there isn't a 164 division. Yeah, he is, Bob. Yeah, the thing with, if you look at Conor Benn after the first fight, he was back in the gym the next day doing a run, and if you looked at his face on fight night, he was quite marked up. But if you looked at him 2-3 days later, he didn't look like he's been in a fight. He didn't have the effects of in a fight. Your recovery as you get older at a cellular level is just not the same. Nowhere close. It's why we start to age and things start to fall apart. Essentially, what recovery we do slows down to the point where we don't really recover and we start to degrade. And Eubank's at that point, and making that again at his age, it's just not going to happen for him. And there is a chance he get hurt. But what does Eubank do then? Does someone need to tell him if he's intent of boxing at 160? Does someone need to step in and say? Because at the end of the day, he might need saving from himself. Yeah. I mean, you look at Canelo at the moment, and Canelo, using boxing logic, Eubank Jr. is a fairly easy fight for him. But I don't know. If Eubank wanted to, I suppose he could get on his bike all night and make a fight of it. It's not his way, though, really, is it? Canelo hasn't stopped anyone in years. Who did he last stop? Well, he stopped Billy, didn't he? He stopped Billy Joe. He stopped 2 of the 3 when cleaning up at Super Middle the first time, didn't he? But we are going back some years. Yeah, yeah. See, if I take all the exterior circumstances away from Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, take away the fact that Eubank Jr.'s, should really start looking after himself, take away the weight, take away the difference in weight, take away everything. Ask me would I just want to see that fight again? And I think that fight is as good again. But there are just too many factors for me that I don't like. And even in Conor Benn's direction, when Conor Benn, there was a couple of shots Conor Benn took in round 12. And he took one where he sort of backed to the ropes and he had his chin in the air and he had his mouth open and he got his head spun. And I kind of winced when he took it because by the end, the size difference really began to tell. And even Conor Benn, when he was taking his shots, and even though Eubank is not a puncher, you felt that kind of felt wrong in the way that it felt wrong to see Eubank boxing at that weight. So, I agree. If I ignore all that, which I can't, I'd watch it, but I can't ignore all that. Caleb Plant, that's who I meant. Yeah, when he cleaned up at 168. So Caleb Plant and Billy Joe Saunders, he stopped, didn't he? Yeah. Oi, Acoustic Gymnastics. Haven't seen you for a long time, son. How are you, sir? Salute. Yeah, Caleb Plant. That's what I was looking for. Eubank trades on toughness and determination, which is laudable. Yeah, 100%. But it won't do any favours. No. 100% right. Kind of felt the same about Riddick Bowe towards the end of his career. And Holyfield. Canelo's last stop, which was 2021. Was Caleb Plant 21? Was that 2000? Was that 4 years ago? Fucking hell. Cheers, Acoustic Gymnastics. Hope you're well, mate. Thanks for coming in, mate. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, was Caleb Plant 2021? Wow. You look through Canelo's back catalogue, though, don't you? It is pretty amazing when you go through his back catalogue. It's wild, really. When you think of the fighters that have retired while Canelo's still doing it, that's pretty mad. No, never. No. That's a good subject to get onto. Me and I think Bob done a video on this, and I watched this, and this was an absolute joy. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly urge you to go and watch it. It's Dave Allen and Johnny Fisher, and I forget what it's called. Cards on the Table. Cards on the Table. Dave Allen and Johnny Fisher is an absolute joy. It's about 10 minutes long, 10, 15 minutes long. And so they have cards on the table and they turn the cards over and each card has a question that they have to ask each other. And watching Dave Allen verbally and mentally old man Johnny Fisher. And I like Johnny Fisher. I've made videos about I like Johnny Fisher. I like Dave Allen. But Dave Allen is a very clever, shrewd man. And watching Dave Allen, old man Johnny Fisher, mentally and verbally, was fantastic. And he didn't do it. See, a lot of people said that he was being condescending and stuff like that. I didn't agree. I just think that's Dave Allen. He's straight to the point and very honest. He said some great stuff. He said if you wouldn't, because they said, is he a great boxer? This is Dave Allen to Johnny Fisher, and he said he's a good boxer. He's a great athlete, rugby player, this, that, and the other, superb athlete, good boxer. He said, well, I'm a good athlete, fantastic boxer. And he said, if Johnny Fisher wins the British title, and Johnny Fisher stepped in and said, if I win the British title, I'll be more than happy. I'll be made up. That's brilliant for me. And he said, yeah, but if you win the British title, it'll be because you're a good athlete and a good puncher, not because you're a good boxer. Dave Allen's very, very clever. He's a very astute man. That's why Dave Allen's YouTube channel is great if you don't watch that. But yeah, cards on the table, Dave Allen, Johnny Fisher. And I'm really looking at, again, I know a lot of people hated. Let me just catch up with the comments. Yeah, it was funny. I want Dave to win, but I fear it'll go similarly to the Whittaker and Cameron. Do you think? That's the big what? You think he cleans him out early? He's got a good chin on Dave Allen, though. Really good chin. Hard man he is. Allen and Fisher card. Yeah, it was brilliant, Bob. It was one of the most. Every now and again, you get two characters that just click and work together, and them two just work together. And I felt a bit sorry for Johnny Fisher because Johnny Fisher was sat there for a lot of the time with just kind of a bit of a confused look on his face, but he handled himself well. Like I said, I like both these guys. I think they're real, honest, genuine lads who are just, Dave Allen could have done better. Johnny Fisher's overachieved probably at this point, but I like them both. To me, they're both very endearing fellas. I don't dislike either one. I really like them. And I really like this fight in the way that Ben Eubank just caught my imagination. The first one of these caught my imagination, and the second one has, because I just like the two guys. I like the dynamic. I like the story. And this card's on the table. If anyone hasn't watched it, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's brilliant. An absolute joy. Yeah. Who put about? This is another thing. Me and Joe have made videos on this. I know Joe hasn't, and I have, about people saying that people take dives and fix fights and all that. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I know like people like to think that, but it doesn't work like that at all. It may have done back in the 30s, but no, not anymore, unfortunately. The corruption in boxing now is, like and Bob jump in if I get this wrong, but you know how the American judicial system is very engineered because it's, you have judge selection and all that. Mainly at fight level, the corruption in boxing is mainly to do with judges and what judges are picked and what judges are not allowed to be used and things like that, rather than people throwing fights. That's not really a thing. I tell you what, just going back to Eubank Jr. Ben for a minute. I meant to mention this last week, but I forgot. Was anyone listening to John? I'm terrible with names. What's Eubank's trainer now? What's his name? Colour fella. Did anyone listening to him in the corner and the advice or non-advice that he was giving Eubank Jr.? There was basically no technical instruction whatsoever. And come the last few rounds, he just kind of stood there with a lost look on his face. Yeah, great. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. You got to do this. I was just thinking, how much you get paid? Anyway, David needs that dollar though. Well, I think Dave's done not bad. I can imagine Dave's probably done all right with his money, but he's done very well. Or saying that, did he say on that, was it on that or another interview I said, he said how much money he made for the first Dave Allen fight, for the first Johnny Fisher fight. And I think he come out of it, he said, with less than a couple of 100,000. Jonathan Banks, Rem, thank you, mate. Yeah, Jonathan Banks' instruction in the corner. Did any of you listen to it? I have to split, mate. Got to run. So my donation. Yes, no problem, Bob. Thanks for coming in, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much, mate. Thank you. Thanks for the support. Yeah, manipulation. You're right, Joe. 100%. And like I said, me and Joe both made videos on this previously. It's much more about manipulation to throw the odds in your favour than it is actually taking dives and all that shit. Like, don't believe people when they tell that. Don't people believe that it's a fix. It's a fix, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just not the way it works. Dave will make 3 times as much if he goes to sleep. No, he won't. No. Unfortunately. In Guy Ritchie movies, it might work like that, but in the real life, it don't work like that. Literally, only clear dive I'm giving is Malik Scott v. Wilder. Do you know? That's weird. So, I think the worst one. I don't know how old you are, Rem, or you acoustic, but Joe will remember this. Mike Tyson. Fucking hell, I'm terrible with names tonight. What's his name? Bruce Seldon. Mike Tyson, Bruce Seldon. I think he's one of the worst I've seen. Oh, it's great. Listen to later. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it, mate. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for the support. And like I say, really appreciate it, Andrew. So thanks a lot, mate. Thank you very much. The wrongful bill will be finished, though I'm 47. Oh, still a nipper, mate. I'm 50. So looking at it today as well on the camera. But yeah, Bruce Seldon. You can remember Bruce Seldon then. Bruce Seldon wasn't bribed. No, I know. No, I know. I'm not saying he was bribed. I'm saying he out of fear willingly took a dive. That's what I'm saying. No. I know he weren't bribed, but what I'm saying is he took a dive anyway without the money. Maybe he should have got a bribe beforehand because he didn't want to be in there. Had no place being there. So unlike Peter McNeely, who actually give it a go. But I wasn't saying he took a bribe. No, but he just he took it upon himself to end the fight, didn't he? That's what he did. Thanks, Bob. Cheers, mate. Have a good one. Yeah, they were the days, though. No, Jake actually. You just got to look at Jake's opponents. You've got to look at the ages they are. You've got to look at Arthur Man. What's he fought? He's fought, other than Tommy Fury, he's fought another couple of sort of novice pros, hasn't he? They're all honest performances, but he's just fought, aging UFC fighters. Tyron Woodley. Was Tyron Woodley retired when he fought him? I think he was, weren't he? But yeah. Yeah, exactly, Rem. Yeah, he fights. The pro boxers he's fought are Tommy Fury, the coloured lad. He actually finished with a really good uppercut. To be fair, even though you shouldn't get caught with that punch, but it was a good shot. He can listen. Jake Paul can punch a bit. He can fight a bit. But he is what he is. He's maybe English title level, and I'm not British. I mean English, maybe. But he's a strong lad. He's a tough lad. He can punch a bit, but. Listen, he's trying. He will never build a reputation in the sport properly fighting old UFC fighters and novice level pros. See, this is the thing. The only actual dives I can recall involved a football player called Mark. God, I have to pronounce that. Who was awful, but being groomed as a contender. A couple of his opponents claimed to be fine. What country was that? Was that sort of Europe somewhere? I don't know, but. I was talking about Jake Paul. So, yeah, unfortunately, Jake Paul is cursed in a sense. He's not because he's making a fuck ton of money. But Jake Paul fought Tommy Fury, and I can't remember who he fought, but then he fought two novice level pros, which for me was the right thing to do. If you want to get yourself on a track to a genuine world title and a genuine reputation as a professional fighter, to me, he done the right things. He fought two novice level pros at about the level that he should have been fighting. So I had absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I thought, respect to him, he's now taken a serious route. The problem with that was all Jake Paul's fans want to see him box because none of them are real proper fight fans. They probably watch UFC in the States, but they're not fight fans. So when he fought these two novice level pros that no one was heard of, he got a load of shit for it and got fucking abused for it by the hardcore fans who don't really follow the sport. So he kind of had to go back to please people to fighting these idiots. But that's the point. If he wanted to be a serious professional fighter and sort of navigate an actual professional, serious career, he should have carried on that route. But he's probably not willing to fight those people who aren't a name and sort of the numbers go down and forge out a career the way it should be done. So he's just took the... But who can blame him? I say this about Tommy Fury as well. Right, USA. So I say this about Tommy Fury as well. Tommy Fury fighting Jake Paul was absolutely the right thing he should have done all day long. Tommy Fury was never going to make it anywhere past whatever low level, but he made a fuck ton of money for an easy fight against Jake Paul, probably enough money to retire on. So Tommy Fury done exactly the right thing he should have done in my book. It's what I'd have done if I was Tommy Fury and knows I've not got enough talent or enough ability or enough drive to make it at the top level of a professional. I'm going to take the fucking big bag and put my feet up, 100%. I remember Marius Braders offering Jake a little shot years ago. Yeah. Of course, Jake didn't respond. Of course, yeah. And then you had, was it Jake call out Anthony Joshua as well? And Joshua did say, didn't he? He said, I'll take that fight. I'll fight anyone. I bet you will. Because can you imagine the money Anthony Joshua would get for fighting Jake Paul? Excuse me. Yeah. But Jake Paul. The only thing I will credit Jake Paul is with the fact that Amanda Serrano has earned way more money with Jake Paul than she would have done with anyone else. Not even close. Amanda Serrano has quadrupled her return than had she been with a normal promoter. I'd like to know I don't know, but I'd like to know what Serrano got or what he negotiated for Serrano against Katie Taylor. But you can only go on what Amanda Serrano says. And Amanda Serrano says she's been treated fucking brilliantly by Jake Paul. So for that, I give him respect. The MVP prospect shows Jake puts on her incredible. Joe could probably attest this as he's watched a few of them. Jake Paul is doing a lot for. Yeah, like I said, I 100% agree. He signed up several female fighters. And didn't he put the girl who lost in the Olympics to the man, didn't he put her on a card and give her a good payday? Was she, I can't remember what nationality she was. Was she Italian? I don't know. But the one who sort of lost to the man in the Olympics, he'd give her a big payday. So that's what I say. Jake Paul gets a lot of shit. And probably rightly so for the way he's engineered his boxing career when he says he wants to be a serious world title. Fair enough. Give him abuse for that. Give him abuse for the people he fights, for the level of opposition, the fact that they're not boxers, they're ex-UFC stars, failed UFC stars. But put a ton of respect on his name for what he's done for the women's game. So, yeah. You know, I'm all for fighters making money. So the Italian girl at the Olympics, Jake offered her a slot on a pro card, but she's still, right, yeah. So he offered her a slot. But again, and you can argue that, is he doing that for clout? I don't know. What does he get out of managing Amanda Serrano, really? What does he get? Your return on a female fighter is fairly limited, isn't it? And you're negotiating fantastic contracts for her. So you've got to care a little bit. You're not just doing that for clout. But he didn't Prime and MVP sign Crawford as well. I know Crawford is sponsored by Prime, isn't he? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Amanda said on Twitter she's making over double than what she did on the second Taylor fight. Yeah, not surprised. What, Jake Paul? Yeah. Because, like I said, he gets a lot of shit, and I don't have an objection with him getting shit for his choice of opponents and want to be taken seriously. But for what he's done for women's boxing, and I can guarantee you this, Crawford's making a fuck ton of money from that Prime sponsorship as well. Yeah, credit where credit is due. Totally agree, Joe. Totally agree. So yeah. He's doing a lot better for these fighters that are under his control than a lot of the proper promoters are. And as someone said earlier about Turki Al-Sheikh, he will not be paying that money for long. Ride that gravy train while it lasts, and it ain't going to last long. You know that by the pay scale that came out for the sort of hookup with Dana White for the competition. Because if you were a flyweight, then that money's great. But if you're a heavyweight, you ain't fighting for that. So, yeah. So I look forward to that video, Joe. Any other topics you want to talk about, gentlemen? Anything I missed from the weekend? Anything I missed from the news? I could talk about Billy Nelson all night, to be honest, because that just absolutely fucking was outrageous. Inoue. I nearly forgot. I said you will save the best till last. So let's talk about Inoue and Cardanas. How high weight can Inoue go? Yeah, that is an interesting one. You don't really know until he starts going up, do you? Yeah, Espinoza. Do you think he'd maul him? He can do everything, Espinoza, can't he? And he's tall, he's long, rangy, uses all the natural attributes to the full sort of potential. I tell you what, if Cardanas had another minute left in that round, that fight could have been extremely different. Because he got up, didn't he? Took the count, and then the bell went for the end of the round. And he was hurt. You could look in his eyes, and he was hurt. But that is testament to what sort of that fight that is, that you get hurt like that and you sort of rebuild over a round or two, and then you come back twice as strong. Brilliant. And Cardanas was brilliant as well, without ever really winning a lot, in the way that sort of Dubois never won anything. Well, no, Cardanas was better than Dubois against Usyk, but Cardanas' performance was great. Yeah. Do you know what? I think I'm a huge Nick Ball fan, and you know that I've said this for a long time, but I don't actually think Nick Ball has been as good as I expected him to get. I don't think Nick Ball is fulfilling his potential in terms of ability because let me just check. Uh, I thought one of Nick's Ball's I'm terrible with names tonight. I'm just gonna have to check box rec. I thought one of Nick Ball's best performances was Isaac Lowe. I thought he looked brilliant against Isaac Lowe, technically, and I don't think he's been that great. He's been just launching in from distance and not really looking that good. He stopped about yeah. I think Ball. Well, that's the thing, Rem. I think Ball is basic now, but I made a video on him quite a while ago saying how I really liked him because you could see that he spends hours on the mirror, in front of the mirror, on the bags, on the pads. Everything was really nice and tight and compact. His movement was really good. His head movement was really good. His feet were really good. He used his feet to get in. He used the jab to get in. And now he just launches in from the outside with sort of Superman punches from way out of range and looks awful a lot of time. He's strong and he's got a great chin and a great engine, and that gets him through. But I just don't think, from a technical point of view, he's lived up to his sort of ability. Yeah, coming out part. Yeah, he really showed a lot in that fight. Yeah, and that's what I say. I still think the Isaac Lowe performance was, for me, sort of my favourite performance from him. And I don't think, from a technical point of view or skill level, he's actually gone on from that. I think he's plateaued and sort of gone down. And at the moment, he's getting a few on through on sort of pure heart, his engine, his chin, his will to win, and his strength. And he's kind of left the technique behind a little bit. Yeah, he does. And he did that before, but he done that being cute. He used skill and he used ability, and he used his cuteness and his compactness and got in shape, got in distance well. Where now he just goes on sort of brute force and sort of bullying his opponent out of the way. But I don't think, from an ability level, he's got better. I think he's kind of got worse, which is a shame because I think he's a great fighter. And the Isaac Lowe fight, as Joe said, was brilliant. Yeah, no, I haven't either, and I'm a big fan, Rem. I haven't been impressed either, and I'm a really big fan. I'm sort of disappointed. It's gutting. Yeah, not like that. I think he's got the potential, but I just think he needs to, I don't know, sort of almost go back to basics a little bit because he's a really good fighter. Yeah, sheer out toughen him, yeah. And that's only gonna get you so far. And I said this kind of about Fabio Wardley. I said that Fabio Wardley really needs to work on some kind of defense because you can only trade so far on balls and strength and a chin and an engine. That'll only get you so far. At the top level, you're gonna be really, really short or knocked out or both. No, kind of giving it up. He's a great. I tell you what, I've seen him take some huge body shots, Nick Ball. He's tough as hell. Yeah, I don't know what the situation with his mandatory, and I don't know because after that Inoue fight, no one really talked about a Nick Ball fight, did they? I heard the Espinoza fight talked about. I watched Joe's video on Inoue, and are you of the opinion that cracks are starting to show for Inoue? I'm not. I don't think that at all. I just think the longer you box, law of averages says you're going to find yourself on the floor and in a fight at some point. And I think he handled it really well. He done exactly the right thing. And he never got caught with that punch from that point on. Did you notice that? Inoue never got caught with that same shot for the rest of the fight, which was like testament to the level of Inoue. Yeah, no, but I think I don't think he's too aggressive because you could say that about Mike Tyson. You could say that about sort of Beterbiev. You know what I mean? I know Batavia's completely different style, but he is pretty much all aggression. I just think you have to have a bit of panache about it as well. You have to have skills. Mike Tyson was only that good at being that aggressive because his skills were so good. But yeah, some great fights coming up. I just wish Nick Ball would show what he can do, because he can do a lot better than that. Cardenas said in his post-fight interview that I knew he doesn't hit as hard as he thought. What surprised me was his volume. Yeah, see, a lot of people. There's kind of misconceptions about punchers, and you can be hit by someone who's not really considered a puncher, and you can think, "Fuck me, he can dig," but he's not really considered a puncher, and doesn't. You don't really see him dropping people all the time. It's weird. A lot of it is you've got to, with fighters like Inoue, and the same with Beterbiev. It's a complete package thing. It's not just the punch. It's the pressure. It's the constant pressure. It's the volume. It's the timing. It's not always just pure punch power. That's where the difference between just a banger and then an elite level pound for pound contender. It's all the ingredients that are in there that make you them levels above everyone else. And Inoue is one of them guys. Yeah, I know, because you kind of think, you almost think with Beterbiev, did we get to see the best of him? Did we get to see the best of Beterbiev? Yeah. I don't know. I think Bivol would always be the same problem. The only thing I think with Beterbiev, and like, you've obviously watched my videos about both of their fights, and to me, they were two of the greatest fights I've ever seen. Not for the fact that they were two of the greatest fights I've ever seen, but for what was on show, the levels of what was on show was fucking outrageous. And the way that the second fight went, where Bivol looked at the first fight, realised that in the pockets when they exchanged punches and punched with each other, he was the faster, sharper puncher and won the exchanges pretty much all the time. And then he went away from that thinking, right, if I can do that more often, I'll win the fight. So when he came back, he did that more often. And it didn't work because Beterbiev had realised the same thing, that in them exchanges, Bivol had got the better. So he had worked out that when Bivol would pivot away and turn away after landing his exchange before Beterbiev could exchange with him, he had just figured out a real simple fucking trick where as Bivol went to pivot and turn away, he just stepped across and then threw a jab followed by a right hand, whatever. And then he had the last laugh in the exchange. And it led to him bullying Bivol around the ring. And then Bivol then had to readjust completely because his tactic for winning the fight hadn't worked, because Beterbiev had worked out a plan to counter Bivol's plan for winning the fight, which then meant Bivol's only answer was, right, now I've got to fucking bury my feet, dig my feet and sit down on punches and punch to hurt Beterbiev. It was fucking amazing. So I think Bivol would give Beterbiev trouble every day of the week. But Beterbiev just can't throw enough superlatives at. Yeah. I mean, there was the test that showed the elevated levels of growth hormone, weren't there? Which was the thing, which were in the range of being above normal, but not high enough to constitute illegal use. But you do look at Beterbiev, and he may just. I said this when I made the video on what's her name? Bear with me a sec, gentlemen. When I made the video on the Welsh girl, what's her name? Lauren Price. I said she could just be a genetic phenom, but to me, she shows all the signs of being a little bit saucy. Now, again, Beterbiev could just be a genetic phenom. He could just be in that 0.001% of the gene pool. And he does train like a fucking madman, and he's never out of shape. And that always helps. If you're always in shape, it's easier to maintain than it is to get off or build. It's a lot easier to maintain. So he could just be a genetic phenom, but you do think he keeps in some fucking shape for his age. So you can only sort of take your heart off to it, can't you? And we've also got the trilogy fight to come up, haven't we? Which I massively look forward to, because the first two were just works of art for me. Right, gentlemen, we're nearly an hour and a half, so I'm going to call it, because I'm not as young anymore, and these late nights sort of do me. Thank you for everyone that stopped in. Rem, as always, mate, salute to you. Joe Stunner, thank you, sir. Having such esteemed company in the room, thank you very much. Who else did we have? Acoustic, good to see you, mate. Haven't spoke to you for a while. Hope you're well. Bob, I know Bob's gone. He's probably out seeing to the horses, or, shooting bears, or whatever he's doing. Andrew, thanks for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for coming in. Nice to see you all. Good to chat. And I will see you all soon. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I don't even know how to turn a live stream off. How do I turn in stream? Right. Thanks, fellas. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.